Alex here from Blacksheep IT Consulting. I'm sure many of you remember the Keymaker, a little side project where I built, with the help of Siebel friends from the years, a little script for Windows and also later for Linux to really quickly put together a self-signed certificate or a certificate authority even, and then use that self-signed certificate authority to sign certificates for Siebel environments that are simple enough to use this principle. So that is the training environments, educational environments, testing environments, etc. So this is on GitHub, and it's just that. It's just a script that runs a key tool, Java key tool, and OpenSSL in a certain sequence to produce, well, the JKS files that you would use to install Siebel, or that would be used in the Tomcats. Okay. Now fast forward to today, which is end of March, and soon will be May 2026. There is something happening in the certificate space which is called the deprecation of dual-purpose SSL certificates. What does that mean? Dual-purpose refers to the fact that the certificates that we typically use for Siebel environments both have the server auth and client auth extended key usage signature. So this basically tells anybody reading the certificate that this certificate is valid for client authentication and for server authentication. Server authentication being, for example, when a web server gets a request and sends a response, then it uses its server authentication. I'm this server. And the client, when it is asked to authenticate, it uses its client authentication certificate. And in the past, soon to be the past, you could officially have both types of extended key usage in one certificate, so single purpose. Now we have a shift to dual purpose certificates, which means that any new certificate that is newly provisioned from May 1st onwards must have only either server auth or client auth, but not both. So that means nothing, no panic, no panic for any internet web servers or Siebel servers or Siebel Tomcats. There is a very good article from Oracle's Brian Kelly on the official Oracle Siebel CRM blog, where Brian details everything that I said before, but also tells Siebel customers to worry not, because also there needs to be some changes in Siebel to actually accommodate two different certificates for client and one for server authentication. So you should be aware of this, and you should basically be planning for this. And Siebel 26.3 actually supports the new style, having a specific server keystore and a specific client keystore, and of course a separate trust store with this impressive installer screen that you see when you install Siebel 26.3 and higher fresh. When you do a fresh install, you see this. You might remember the previous screen was much smaller. So you had basically Keystore, Trust Store, and now you have a third one. And for the first time in Siebel, you can also have different passwords for each file. So this means you can, in 26.3 and higher, you can basically migrate to the new Keystore design, or Trust Store, Keystore design it. And if you install Siebel 26.3 fresh, you already enforcing that principle. But even customers on 26.2 and prior will get some instructions from Oracle. That's something that has been announced in the last Siebel Friday. So I've been doing a quick installation of 26.3 just in one folder in one new home, and I went through this prompt, also generated, of course, my different key stores. So let's start with those key stores. So here you can see I have a Siebel client key store, I have a Siebel server key store, and I have a Siebel trust store JKS. The way I generated this is quite unique, and you might want to watch an upcoming video where I show you how to, well, create a generator for these, because the original keymaker generator script will not generate these files, so I've basically upgraded the keymaker, but that's a different story. No matter how you arrive at the JKS files, let's see what is in those JKS files. So let's fire up a graphical editor like Portoclay, or you can use Keystore Explorer, whatever is your liking. And let's open the first one. Let's start with the server key store, because that's more something that you would have usually in a Siebel environment, a key store that allows a Tomcat to, well, certify. And here's the key pair. So nothing out of the ordinary. We have a subject here, and in the extensions we have validity. So this is a 10-year certificate. Well, there's also something coming about the validity dates for publicly used certificates, but this is internal. This will never reach the internet, so it's okay to have 10 years. And if we look at the extended key usage for this, it only says TLS web server authentication. So not both, not both key usages anymore, just one key usage. This certificate is supporting server authentication, on TLS. And also have alternative names as usual, and so forth. But that key usage, the extended key usage, that's really what this is all about. And of course, this one is issued by a self-signed certificate authority, Siebel CA, which is also in the same key store. And that's any certificate authority, of course, would work if you have a real one. This one is just a self-created one, so suitable for non-production or non-mission critical environments. Perfectly fine. So now let's start Portoclay one more time, and let's open the Siebel client key store. So notice I have different passwords here. And so there's a certificate or private public key pair for the same subject, also signed by the same certificate authority. And in extensions, we have the extended key usage TLS web client authentication. So web client. So that is a certificate that a client can be used in, for example, a mutual validation. And other than that, it's the same certificate, but it's a second one. So now they are single-purpose certificates. Okay, and just for good measure, let's open one more time and see the trust store. So again, I have a different password for this one. This is kind of a Premier and Siebel, and the trust store just has any number of certificate authorities that you want to trust. For this very simple first setup of Siebel, there's only the very own certificate authority in there. Okay, so 3 different JKS files, different content in each, different password for each. So when you run the installer, you're prompted for these 3 files. So I've reused the triplet on the enterprise components, that is the internal Tomcat, and I also used the same files for the application interface, that is the external Tomcat. So The installer will take these files and copy them over as usual. So you point to these files wherever you have them, and after the installation, go to, well, either application container external or internal, and in the Siebel Certs folder, you will have, of course, these files, and they will be referenced from within various XML files. First and foremost, server XML. So here we have the server XML of the external Tomcat. The ports are entered. So we are following the Tomcat 10 style, of course. This is a Tomcat 10, and this is the SSL enabled connector listing on this port of usual. So the SSL host config has a pointer to the TrustStore file. So here we have definitely the copied TrustStore file with the TrustStore password. And then there is a certificate section within the SSL host config, and that points to the Siebel server Keystore. So that is used by Tomcat when it, well, emits a certificate and says, this is who I am. And there's a different password, of course. So this is all generated by the installer in 26.3 and higher, of course. And just for comparison, this is the internal Tomcat server XML. Very similar, of course, pointing to the copy of the TrustStore, and again, a Siebel server Keystore. So this is for the Tomcat acting as a server. It needs to know where can I retrieve my certificate, my public and private key. So there are other files on, for example, the external Tomcat. There is application interface properties, and the application interface, the AI, not confused with artificial intelligence, of course. The AI is an application that lives on the external Tomcat and acts as a client to, for example, connect to the cloud gateway to do a service discovery. So in the certificate info section of this properties file, we have a client auth through, and we have a reference to the client Keystore along with the password. And of course, if it's a client, it must also have a TrustStore. So this is a typical configuration where an application, a Java application on Tomcat, acts as a client when it, for example, connects to, well, the cloud gateway. Here's the URL. And that cloud gateway, of course, is the server, the Tomcat, that uses its server certificate. So everything's still working. It's just that there are two different JKS files and two different certificates used. One has the client EKU and the other one has the server EKU. So that pattern repeats on, for example, migration properties. The migration application is also is a Java application living on the external Tomcat, and it acts as a client. So it has a client Keystore reference, and of course, alongside that is always a TrustStore. If you go down to the internal Tomcat, for example, you have a config agent, another Java application, the configuration agent, which lives on the internal Tomcat, acts as a client. So it too uses the client Keystore. See the pattern? Enterprise cache server. Oh, that's using the server Keystore. Okay. So once you inspect those properties files, you will see basically a little bit of more insight than before, maybe what they actually acting as in the Siebel overall architecture. And there's gateway properties. Never mind the security profile. I've been bootstrapping and stopped at the security profile. This is not the place where the security profile is stored, so ignore that. Big elephant in the room. What we want to see is that the gateway properties has all the Keystore references, the client Keystore, the Siebel server Keystore, so it can act as a client and a server. And as mentioned before, to automatically generate the self-signed certificate authority and all the three Keystore types with the two certificate types, I needed a new version of the keymaker. And of course, it's the age of AI. And what you see here is a script generated, of course, by courtesy of AI that rewinds the keymaker and makes it suitable for the modern style of certificates that we need for, well, simple enough Siebel environments. Notice I'm using the word simple, and that means environments that are either used for evaluation, for sandboxing, for training purposes, or they're very, very secure and embedded down deep in your network and cannot be reached through the internet, so they can use self-signed certificate authorities and certificates you sign with those. But this script, of course, takes into consideration that there are now 3 files, and each file has either the client auth or the server auth e-key.